Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Current time is 4:12 p.m. and welcome everyone to the District Council 14 May meeting of 2025. All right, first and foremost, we'll get attendance out of the way. Councilor Vargas.
Present.
Councilor Orlikov.
Here.
And I am Councilor Laurent. With all of being present, we can proceed with our meeting. All right, we'll go ahead and start things off with public comment. As always, we allow about 20 minutes total, giving each speaker 2 minutes each, which we do have a timekeeper for. Please no personal attacks. Let's maintain decorum. And do we have any public comments out there? Mr. Sully.
Hello everyone, my name is Sully. I'm with the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability. I'm here today because we are co-sponsoring a film screening of Incident at the DeSalle Black History Museum with a number of organizations, Common Cause Illinois and the Chicago Alliance, as well as the Invisible Institute and Hypnotic Pictures, who helped produce the film. It is a film that covers the police murder of Harith Augustus in the South Shore neighborhood in 2018. It uses CCTV footage and body camera footage to compile the aftermath of his killing and how the police constructed a narrative around his death in the immediate aftermath. It's a very impactful film. I really encourage folks to come out and see it if you haven't, or even if you have. The filmmakers will be present and are engaging in a talkback after the film is over. This is the first time that it's coming back to Chicago after it was nominated for an Oscar this last year. So I have flyers here. I'd love to stack here as well if you want to grab more information. There's a QR code on the back to RSVP to let us know that you'll be in attendance, and a little bit more about the film on the back of the postcards that we have here. So yeah, we hope to see you all there, and yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Gentleman right here.
Hello, I'm John Parisa, just a regular old citizen. I just wanted to say that perhaps the meeting before last, we had the problem with the rapists in the neighborhood and a big deal. And then we met with the commander to try and resolve some of the issues. Luckily, I believe the gentleman was caught, and maybe we could talk about that later, maybe we don't need to, but I'm very happy that that happened. And I probably won't be real popular in saying this, but I kind of thought the last meeting with the commander was kind of a waste of time, mainly because I don't know if you didn't know, or she didn't know, or she wasn't informed, but almost every question was, I can't answer that, it's somebody else. I can't answer that, it's somebody else. So I just wanted to say, if we have another meeting with the commander or any other representative, I guess we need to do our homework first. Maybe you did, I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm just saying that there were quite a few people there, and quite a few people spoke and had questions, and I don't think we got any answers, but within maybe 3 weeks, the rapist was caught. So, I mean, at least that happened. I'm really grateful for that. So, don't throw things at me, but I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for your comments.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Heyman.
Yeah, in regards to that meeting, I know a couple of us went in and talked to the commander several weeks, maybe a month before that meeting happened, and outlined the questions that we were going to ask her. So she knew the questions in advance, had plenty of time to find the answers, but chose not to do so. And that was the second meeting we had with her, where she said every question was, I don't know, I can't tell you that, I don't know. So yeah, I think that was the nature of her. She is no longer our commander. Yeah, we have a temporary acting commander right now who's been in place for, I don't know, several weeks. But and I don't know how long he's going to be there. Maybe it's worthwhile either asking him to come to one of these meetings and again laying out questions, or waiting until they decide to get a permanent commander for the 14th district. But it's very frustrating. She was very frustrating to deal with, in my opinion. The other thing I wanted to just note is, yes, the the person accused of raping the 3 women in 2025 and 2 other women back in 2022 has been arrested, and there was a court date, an original court date for him on May 6th. I couldn't make it, unfortunately. But there is still a rape that occurred 2 days before that meeting with the commander. And she did not mention it at that meeting. It apparently is a different person. And that person actually, according to the police, I talked to them at a meeting on Thursday night, that person ordered an Uber to come pick him up. And the police still have not arrested anybody. So, I mean, some of the rapes have been solved, but there's still the one that's in D1413, I believe, that has still been unsolved.
Thank you for your comments.
John, I don't know anybody that would disagree with what you had to say, and I'm glad that Sally let everybody know. I was at the 14th District yesterday on a completely unrelated bit of business, and was told that, oh, she's not here anymore. And it's a lieutenant, and I just can't remember his name.
Brian Courtney.
Yeah. So the timing might be very good to follow up on some invitations and so on and so forth, and we can hopefully start anew. That's all I got. Oh, I'm Paul Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? All the way in the back, Mr. Quintero.
Hello everybody, my name is Leonardo Quintero. I am the district counselor in the 12th district, so just a little south of here. And I'm actually here to talk about a proposal that me and district counselor Ashley Vargas are proposing for the commission regarding the Chicago Victims Bill of Rights, which has to do a lot with what you all are talking about, as well as some of the incidents that occurred in the 12th district since I've been district counselor just in general. But we often see that there is miscommunication, no communication, or just outright disrespect when it comes to victims and their families and part of CPD. We see that there is no follow-up. I remember one time I got robbed when I was really young, never heard anything about that case. But also I'm working with families in my district who are victims of homicide. And they've been outright disrespected when they're trying to get any type of information, to the point where I have to file FOIAs for them to even get a police report. So we want to ensure that these things are in writing, that the community, the people in Chicago in general know what their rights are when something occurs to them, and that we can hold CPD accountable when these things aren't done. So whether it is a 30-day follow-up from the time that this incident occurred, or a 60-day, or whatever it is, we want to make sure that those things are kept and that you know what is happening in regards to your case, because you're already a victim, you're grieving, whatever it is, and you do not have to put up with this lack or disrespect or whatever it is. And it's plain out just customer service, right? Just give us a call, let us know what's happening, or send it in an email. We've also had some officers lie and say that they've been in communications, but we have all the receipts and everything, phone calls documented, where they haven't. I recently got into an email exchange with Sarah. Okay. We'll talk about that later.
Thank you, Mr. Quintero. Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Okay, there being none, we'll go ahead and close out public comment. Thank you. All right. Now, usually, have you two had a chance to go through the minutes that were delivered to us last night? I know that these kind of can be a marathon. If you need some time, or if you want to take some time during the presentation, we can kind of read through them and come back to this. Is that okay with you two?
Yeah.
Okay with you?
Yeah, we can also push it in silence reading.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna hit the pause button as far as approving the minutes. We've got quite a bit of ground to cover today, so we want to make certain that we're being respectful of everyone's time. All right. District Council updates. Councilor Vargas, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, so I want to address the incident where they did find the perpetrator, and again, that was just one man, but there's multiple women who were raped in the 14th district, and that one man wasn't the perpetrator for all the women. So there still needs to be accountability and the fire under the police to find the rest of the perpetrators, the other individuals who are doing this to people in the 14th district. So it's not over. We're still looking for, I mean, they should still be looking for the perpetrators. And then the other thing was the Chicago Victim Bill of Rights. So I'm working on that with my colleague Leo, considering everything that happened for the last few months, and the women who were victims, survivors, being left in the dark for many months. Sometimes the detective would go on furlough and not mention it to the survivor, and that's unacceptable. So we just need more transparency and a clear line of communication between detective and victim, and that's all this bill is about. It's also about respect. And yeah, I'm excited to carry that out. If anybody has questions, of course we can connect offline. And then the other update would be carrying out an Area 5 detective meeting that was requested when we had the meeting with the commander. This would be larger than the 14th district. It would be all Area 5 districts, so the 17th, the 25th. I haven't reached out to the 16th yet, but if they want to join us in this effort, they definitely can. And in that meeting, we would request a detective, either the commander or a lieutenant, to address all the questions we have. And we would also have victim services there. So we just got to decide on the date that works with all Area 5 districts. Right now we're looking at the 14th, which is our 14th district meeting, 16th, 18th, or 19th. We have yet to zero down on that. And once we do, I can send out an email, or my colleagues will also be in touch with the community. And that's all my updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vargas. Councilor Rosenthal, do you have any updates?
Yeah, 2 updates. We held, the district council used some of the funds available to us to pay self-defense trainers from Thousand Waves to hold a free workshop for people that signed up from the community. So we held that at Pulaski Park Fieldhouse on last Saturday, May 10th, 1 to 4 p.m. And Jim, the park supervisor, donated the park space to us. He did not charge us, so thank you, Jim. And from the people's reactions at the end, they seemed to find it valuable. There were 25 people that came and attended the training, which is a pretty good retention rate. There are still a lot of folks interested, but we can talk about that later. And then my second update is that I was passing out flyers at the farmer's market, and I met Charlotta Pritchett, who is the partner of the deceased Timothy Blaze, who was killed on January 3rd of this year by many gunshots from police officers responding to a call. And that was traumatic for her, so I spoke with her about that. That's it.
Thank you for your updates. All right, just a quick couple of items for me. The Bucktown Community Organization, they're doing a community cleanup, June 8th. I'll go ahead and send this out in the email to my email list, so if you're interested, I've got plenty of ways for you to get in touch with them. I think it's always great when we work together as a community to make the place a better place to live. That includes public safety and general cleanliness. In regards to the sexual assault particular person, facts that were shared so far. May 6th was the hearing, the initial hearing. I'm not going to mention the person's name, the perpetrator's name, out of respect for everyone involved. But he did plead not guilty. So that. Take with that what you will. That is usually calls for a long scheduling of court hearings. But so hopefully they get to some resolution rather sooner than later. That being said, and it kind of piggybacks on what Councilor Orlikoff was sharing. The crime reports across the city are showing a decline in crime. But as we've also mentioned already, like, okay, they caught one guy, that doesn't mean that all of our problems are solved. We need to keep our foot in the gas and make certain that we're being aware and taking care of one another as far as public safety goes throughout our community and citywide. So stay vigilant. We work together to report all suspicious activity, and I intend to follow up with any updates on the pending litigation with the criminal penalties with the gentleman that they, dare I call him a gentleman, but the person that they've apprehended.
Thank you.
Did you get the next court date?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for that. As soon as I have it, I'll share it with my
Because I
comments.
didn't get it at my meeting on Thursday too.
But that concludes my updates. That being said, we'll move on into our discussions portion. So we've got quite a bit as far as discussions go on the schedule for today. That being said, we're going to have our presentations set up, and we're going to hold all the Q&As until after we adjourn, and we'll set up briefings because we're trying to be mindful of everyone's time, and we want to make certain everybody gets the fair time for their presentations. It doesn't get overshadowed by one or the other. That being said, we do have a couple of discussions about police accountability, the pretext traffic stops.
Oh, well, yeah, our first discussion, and we have Commissioner Gottlieb here with us today, and he is actually looking forward to taking questions from folks, any questions you might have. The commission, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, really quickly, has 7 commissioners on it, and they get to decide some policy directly for CPD, will be part of that process. And they do some other things as well. They're a level above, the district councils. We're your local representation, and they have more citywide control. So Aaron is one of our 7 commissioners, and he's here today to talk about, they're currently working on the policy related to CPD's traffic stops. And so he's graciously here. Is there a presentation related to that? I'm not sure that Aaron was necessarily planning on going
I
on.
can speak briefly,
Right.
but also giving sort of what kind of
You just want
mentioned, I'd also be fine
Right.
going at the end to make sure that everyone else gets their presentation, and then because I would like to take quite like to
Okay,
me.
no, I mean, because
Whatever works for you.
basically, what I was proposing, and it's entirely up to you.
He's
I don't
mostly just
mind.
gonna be Q&A.
I don't mind,
Yeah.
accommodating either way.
Okay.
Was that we get through the presentations and then we do Q&A to where people can sit there and focus their attention directly to those
Okay.
topics that they're interested in. But
Okay.
it's entirely up to you, whichever you'd like to do.
So I was hoping, because I think there's a lot of confusion about this topic, I was hoping to take questions so we can identify kind of the sources of confusion, hopefully clear some of it up, but I would provide like a very brief overview.
I second that, yeah.
Tell you what, I'll let you go ahead and take my seat that way.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Plus you'll be on camera.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess the question to start you might be, what's the current state
Yeah.
of traffic stop policy?
So thanks for that question. So it's been a long journey, a longer one than I would have liked to get where we are. Since I guess October of 2023, this has been an issue that is strongly considered and has involved some litigation. But where we are now is, right now there's a general agreement between the police department, the commission, and there's also been talk among the independent monitor and other people as well that traffic stops should go in the consent decree. So the consent decree is basically, you've probably heard about it, but basically it says that sort of there's court oversight over the Chicago Police Department because originally the Department of Justice found that there was issues. Yeah, pattern and practice. Then we don't need to get into the details, but then there was a new administration and they no longer were doing federal consent decrees, so it ended up happening at the state level. So there's this consent decree. So the general idea is right now, traffic stops is likely going to go into the consent decree. And once that was sort of generally established, we started with this process where CPD proposed the traffic stop policy first. They sent it to us. we created a response that isn't just one policy, because there isn't 100% agreement on the commission about exactly what it should look like, but it's a general response to what CPD proposed. That information is now public. I believe amazing Anna over there has, not that you need to have it now, but we'll make it available to you all so you know where to find it.
Here, just
Yes.
pass them around. The first one is the CPD policy. The second one is the one that Aaron's referring to, the commissioner, the response to the policy.
There's a response, and some of it has yeah. There's
And then, after this, you
Uh-oh.
guys tell your questions, this QR code, you can give feedback.
yeah.
So it all works together.
And I'm also, at the end, I want to give my information out so anyone can reach out to me as well to ask further questions. But anyway, so we sent a response. That information was made public, I believe, on April 25th or so somewhere about a month ago. So people, I think, have already started giving feedback. But yeah, and what's coming next is, it still isn't formally in the consent decree, so there are these things called stipulations, which are like the rules for which this would go into the consent decree. That will hopefully be ironed out in June. After that, the point would be, so as part of the consent decree, there are a number of parties. Sorry that this is confusing and kind of unnecessarily complicated, but so there's the city of Chicago, which includes the police department and us in this context. We're not the same party, we have separate positions. Then there's the attorney general, who has sued the city as part of the consent decree. So that's the other party. And then there's the independent monitor, is another party who helps administer the consent decree. And she also gets to weigh in. And then there's, of course, a judge who's the final decider if we don't all agree. So where we are at this point, the next person to weigh in is likely to be the attorney general. Because we've weighed in, the police department's weighed in, and now the attorney general will be the next party to weigh in. And then after that happens, hopefully we'll all be able to come to an agreement. But if we're not, the judge will weigh in and decide, sort of based on everyone's position, what traffic stop policy will be in the city of Chicago. Assuming that this ends up in the consent decree, which hopefully, given how much effort has gone into getting it there, it will at this point.
Thank you so much. So I know you're eager to answer your questions. Does anybody have any questions related to traffic stop policy?
And we can get as in the weeds as you want, or as not in the weeds as you want, whatever you want. Yeah, sorry. And I don't want to...
I read through the report
Yeah.
today, both from the commission and from the police. And the thing that stood out to me over and over and over again, it talks about reasonable articulated
Yes.
suspicion.
Uh-huh.
And it's on the police officers in the individual cases to have those reasonable articulated suspicions.
Yeah.
Who are they articulating it to? Do
Yeah.
they need approval before they stop it? Do those go into any reports?
Yeah.
And how can we count on them being reasonable?
Oh, so these are great questions, and I'll do my best. I'm not an attorney, but I'll do my best to answer, because this is actually a legal question in terms of, so reasonable articulable suspicion, it's an evidentiary standard, right? So it's a certain amount of evidence that you need. The highest standard is probable cause, which is what you normally need, for instance, to search someone. Reasonable articulable suspicion is the standard right below that. It's more than a hunch. It can't be based on just your race and gender and things like that. But there's certainly, it's not, there isn't a definition that is so concrete that there is some judgment involved. This does, at least in the policy version that we've proposed, and I can't actually remember off the top, I think it's just in our version, but it might also be in the CPT version. But there is a requirement that, I think it's just in ours actually, there is a requirement that whatever kind of, whatever rationale is used for the stop does need to go into a report. So, again, you could certainly have questions about how well those reports are going to be how well people are going to look at them, how much data analysis is going to be done to make sure they're accurate. So you could have questions about that, but they are supposed to go in reports, and the rationale It also depends on what kinds of stops you're talking about, but the rationale is supposed to be justified in reports. In many cases, especially in cases around consent searches, the rationale is supposed to be stated to the person who's being searched. So these are things that we hope are there, but that's a really good question. And I think I'll point out like one reason why I think it's good that this hopefully goes in the consent decree. And there are certainly issues with the consent decree in terms of its speed and other things, but they do have much more infrastructure than like our commission does to conduct the oversight to make sure that whatever the policy is, that it's being implemented well. That doesn't mean that it'll be implemented perfectly or that the consent decree is infallible to that point, but they're certainly better equipped than our 7-person commission to kind of be following that. So hopefully that's a start to an answer to your question. I mean, I recognize it might also leave some other questions, but yeah.
We have one. Is there going to be another question after Sully? Well, we'll get to that later, I guess. Okay, then you'll be next. Okay.
I kind of forgot my question, so you carry on.
All right, great. Brian, we have another district councilor gracing us in the room.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Brian Ramson, also Dr. Athlete. So I live in the 11th district.
Yeah.
And I have a fairly nuanced take when it comes to these traffic stops, specifically because I understand that I don't think they're being used correctly. They are addressing a need in high traffic, high crime areas like the 11th district. And one of the things I'm curious about is if you guys are going to put this in the consent decree, such that you're changing it and removing its ability to be used as a tool to fight chronic problems in the 11th district, what is being done to replace that tool, or how are you going to address those problems otherwise?
So, great question. So, I mean, I guess first, nothing has been formally decided. Like, we've stated our position. CPD has stated theirs. So, I want to be clear that nothing at this point has been removed. I would also say, and maybe you could be more, like, maybe you'll be more specific about like what you're exactly talking about. What, at least, and it's a little tricky to talk about because the commission isn't entirely in agreement, right? But what I'll tell you is where the commission is in agreement, and then I'll also tell you where my position is. So where the commission is in agreement, so there were basically 3 major decisions that had to be made, or at least 3 issues that are like the key issues. One is, are there certain types of stops that we don't think should happen unless there are very specific circumstances? Those are often like colloquially defined as like low-level stops. So are there any stops that we just don't think should happen? A second issue is whether we should have pretextual stops as a practice in general. Pretextual stops often overlap with those low-level stops, but pretextual stops are about the reason for the stop. So they could be any kind of infraction. And what a pretextual stop is, it's when you're stopping someone for a traffic infraction, but that really isn't the reason that you're primarily stopping them for. You're primarily stopping them for a desire to investigate another offense that's unrelated to that traffic stop. And at least...
So that's primarily the use in which I'm talking about. So
yes.
That's the exact question I'm asking.
And I'll get to that, and I just want to get to the third one. So it's unrelated to that. And then you do have, at least the way it's being used now, you don't need as much evidence as you would in other circumstances to conduct that investigation. The third piece is consent searches. And this is sort of, the Supreme Court has allowed it. My personal view is that consent searches probably shouldn't exist, but that's not the view that is in any of our documents. It basically says, instead of needing probable cause to search someone, you can ask them permission to search them. Why I think that's problematic? I mean, I'll tell you, like right now, the approach the commission has taken is to restrict it to certain cases. Why I think it's problematic is, one, out of all the kinds of stops, it's by far the most racially disparate in terms of how it's used and who's being asked consent. And 2, I think no matter how much you tell someone that they have the ability to say no, there is a power imbalance that I think makes it hard to say no. And some people will be more likely to say no than others if they don't want to be searched. So I do have an issue with the practice, but the position that we've taken is, at least the majority of the commission has taken, is that those should be restricted only to cases where there's reasonable articulable suspicion of some other criminal conduct, and then we have some differences about what that criminal conduct needs to rise to. So to the pretextual stop question. So my position, and this is not actually the position of the majority of the commissioners, it's 3 out of 7. And this is, I think, an important area of difference that has been not stated as clearly as I would like publicly, is that we should not be doing pretextual stops except in very rare exceptions. And I understand the idea that they're serving a purpose from your perspective, and I can't dispute like your perspective, it's your perspective. What I can say is, as someone who studies these issues and has evaluated the evidence around the effectiveness of this practice, there's very little evidence that it actually reduces crimes if you look at it in the aggregate. And the way we know this is that we're not the first city to be interested in getting rid of this practice. And there are fancy statistical ways of trying to tease this out. But we haven't seen that it works, at least if the purpose is crime reduction. And what we have seen is we know that these kinds of stops are actually dangerous both for the person who stopped and the officer for many reasons, and in some cases, for instance, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, deprioritizing these types of stops actually led to fewer assaults against officers. And we've also seen, and this is something I do want to make very clear, is that nothing in our policy would prevent officers from stopping people for things like speeding or like running through a red light. So things that actually like very clearly are tied to safety. What we've seen in some cases is that when officers deprioritize these types of stops, they actually do a much better job at preventing that other kind of behavior and increase tickets for those things. So to your question, so let's say in your case, and I'm not, again, my view is that in the aggregate, we haven't seen that these policies are working, but let's say in your district that there is some benefit from a crime reduction standpoint. I would argue that it is not, that there are still opportunity costs to doing it, and that when you are prioritizing resources in this way, that there are more effective ways, if we did not do this practice, that officers could be used. I have thoughts about what that could look like, and I hope that our commission makes suggestions, because I agree with you that it's not enough to just say, let's take a tool away. Let's actually say, this is what we want you to do. I mean, from my perspective, things like investigating more in community policing, making sure that we actually do a lot more to clear cases and actually solve crimes. Clearance rates have gone up, but a lot of that is sort of an artificial thing where the way it's counted makes it seem like it's gone up way more than it has. So I would like to see resources go to those things that have been shown consistently to address crime, but I'm certainly open to like conversations, and I appreciate that there's nuance there, and agree with you wholeheartedly that if this is something that's taken away, the solution is not, let's just take it away and do nothing. It's how are we going to address the real issues that do exist. So I appreciate the question.
Yeah, so I would say, so I have seen data-driven, or I've looked at the statistical data in aggregate for District 11 for the last 2 or 3 decades, and I have seen that as you increase the enforcement with things that may not necessarily be the best in terms of what they're supposed to be used for, you actually do get a reduction in deaths, right? So, I mean, my experience on the ground tells me this is the case. What I've seen, data analysis-wise, tells me this is the case. I mean, I've been pulled over 50 times since I moved here. I've been in handcuffs 2 or 3 times since I was elected. I mean, I have experience on both sides of this, right? And even looking at the negatives that come with it, I can say that I agree with my constituents, and that I don't know if they would necessarily take it away. And I do believe there are probably places in which it can be improved, and this is why always counsel nuance. But I think this is a conversation you and I can continue later.
Yeah, because I actually would love to talk to you about the data itself and how to actually make, how I think the comparison should be made.
That'd be wonderful.
But yes, I would love to talk with you more offline.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to ask a question at this time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
I have another question.
Sure.
Can people who have been stopped pull out their cameras and film the whole interaction on their own personal cameras? I'm
Yes.
assuming the police are wearing their cameras. but
They should be.
Which may or may not be turned on.
Yeah, exactly. It may not be recorded, it may not be.
Yes, you have the right to film.
Yes,
But
so,
can they do that without the police, either beating them up or taking their camera or doing something else weird like that?
yeah, so they are not supposed, I mean, I think this might even be true in the CPD version. Again, I know our version better than their version off the top of my head, because, but in our version, like you are allowed to film, and
I saw
and
the
they are not-
bystanders can,
yeah.
but I didn't see
Oh.
that the people.
so
in
I
the
should double check
car-
that then. I definitely officers are not allowed to, unless there's some reason why there's, I mean, I can't imagine the scenario exactly what would occur, but if there was some sort of public safety threat that was clear because of this, then they could intervene. But if someone is just literally filming, like that should be allowed, and I believe CPD would actually agree with that as well.
Because I would like to see that explicitly stated.
Yeah, no, I
It said-
appreciate that.
It said the bystanders were
Okay.
around to film it, but I didn't see anything about the people in the car.
Well, I will definitely look at the language again just to double
Because
check
that was
that.
my original question, is, hey, if they stop me, can I do that? From the minute they come up to that window, can
Yeah.
I start filming them and what they're saying, what I'm saying? Because I think that's the only way you can get kind of an independent picture of what actually happened. A friend of mine's husband was stopped. They didn't ask for his driver's license and insurance, they asked for his FOIA card. That's the kind of thing where I would like to have the person filming it take that. He didn't, that's his story now. But he has no evidence that that's actually what happened. But to me, that was just like, what? Stopping him and asking that he, the assumption, A, was that he had a FOIA card and had a gun, which he didn't. But they didn't, it was very clearly, a search kind of a thing. And that happens all the time, I know, from all the other stories I hear. But that's a real personal story to me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
The other thing is I'm really concerned about how police are allocated.
Yeah.
I know in my beat, I happen to live in an apartment right above the corner of Kedzie and Fullerton. And last year mainly, we had traffic stop after traffic stop after traffic stop on that corner. And 2 blocks away on Kedzie, people were breaking into cars regularly and taking stuff from the
Yeah.
cars. And I brought that up at least 4 beat meetings, because we only had them every other month back then, and nothing changed, nothing was done. I was told, well, that's this person's regular
Yeah.
place to be.
So I think to that point, so first of all, I appreciate you sharing your experience. So to that point, I think this is where I think from my perspective, the opportunity cost comes in, like what you were saying about how resources are allocated. I do think that, when you, that in many cases, so of the 6 stops, there are 6 types of stops that we have said we would like to restrict. Those are all related to equipment violations, not actual someone speeding, etc. Those now make up more than half of all traffic stops. I do not believe that someone's license plate looking a certain way or is the best use of officer resources. And it's true, it didn't used to be this way. I mean, that is because there were other, prior to about 2016, instead of these kinds of stops being the norm, there were stops on foot, stop and frisk, right? So sort of once that became no longer allowed, we saw this huge jump in these equipment violations. I think at least for some of there are some where there could be debate about whether they have safety implications, but I think there are others where it's pretty clear that's, well, at least to me, it's pretty clear. I mean, I don't want to speak for others, but where it would be hard to argue that the infraction itself is a safety issue. And I think at the very least from my perspective, so there's been a debate among the commission about what the exception should be for those 6 stops. From my perspective, at the very least for those 6 types of stops, that stop should not be the primary reason for, that low-level infraction should not be the primary reason for the stop. If you want to ticket someone for that low-level infraction because they've sped and you stop them for that, that isn't exactly the standard that I've written down and articulated so far. I could probably get behind that because you've committed another violation of the law. But I do not think that officers should be spending their time looking for people whose front license plate is not on their car. So for me, like, that's my perspective. And I recognize that there are many different perspectives. We've all have different experiences throughout our lives. But that's from my perspective. When I think about how resources are allocated and looking at a lot of the evidence, like, I think we could allocate the resources better than we are.
Thank you. I think that I think that we're probably going to look to move on in a short order. So, we can maybe take up to 2 more quick questions max. But is anybody waiting to ask another question? We could move on sooner than that. Okay, it looks like we might be. Okay, maybe this might be the last question, if that's all right.
And I'll talk to people after if they want, or people can reach out to my email. I'll just say it now.
No, so we can have one more question. Hopefully, it won't take too long, and then we'll be set. Thank you.
Yeah, my question was in regard to the sort of standards of what cops would have limitations as far as stopping people on.
Yeah.
Class A misdemeanors and felonies have been mentioned as one standard, and another one was about imminent threat to the public. I'm wondering which one is more conservative or which one you consider more...
So it's a great question, and I think... so you've gotten in the weeds, which is great. This is around, the issue where this really comes into play is really around the low-level stops and the consent searches. But actually really the low-level stops, actually where this specific debate comes into play. To be clear, so the first standard would say the public safety standard that you mentioned, or the low-level misdemeanor, we'll do the misdemeanor first. So what that standard suggests is that you could only conduct those 6 stops if you had, here we go with the reasonable articulable suspicion again, but reasonable articulable suspicion that that person was involved in a separate Class A misdemeanor or felony. Obviously those 6 stops are not Class A misdemeanors or felonies. I will say the reason why that was what I supported is twofold. To my earlier point, I do not think that those 6 stops should be the primary reason you are stopped. With our standard, that would not be the case. You'd have to commit some other infraction. And I will say the reason why, for me, it wasn't just any infraction, at least initially, although I'd be willing to have that discussion about lowering it slightly, is that I do think a lot of these equipment infractions are issues related to poverty, often. And I don't love the idea that people are being ticketed and then not being able to pay for it. So for me, I do want to make those 6 stops as rare as possible, unless there's a really good reason. I'll tell you my concern with the imminent public safety standard is that's incredibly vague. There's no definition in place about what is a public safety threat. It's going to differ dramatically officer to officer. And I have concerns, especially because the 6 stops we're talking about, we've identified them as low level and not public safety threats, that if we have this very vague standard, that the practice of stopping people for these low level things will not change all that much. So that's my concern with that piece, and why, at the very least for me, any exception needs to be tied to some other clear violation of the law.
Yeah, I don't know if there's time for a quick follow-up, but with the Class A part, my concern is there a way to legally or administratively decouple the theft and retail theft dimensions of the Class A definition so that we're not endorsing the cops hunting people for property crimes, because there are a list of very serious crimes related to serious harm under the Class A definition. But by allowing them to go after people for retail theft and things like that, you're reinforcing very dangerous antisocial behaviors that we're already trying to keep in check with the pursuit policies and things like that. And like, there's unconfirmed reports right now in neighborhood chats of anti-black vigilante violence based on minor property crimes. So this is a serious thing, and these types of situations become the engine for that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have a lot of sellout queer, sellout black and brown and Asian, and sellout disabled folks who will continue to push criminalization and punishment just because they've been impacted, because such and such has happened to them. When a lot of things have happened to a lot of people in this city. And that is unacceptable as an identity shield.
Yeah, so I hear that concern. I think, and you're right, Class A misdemeanor, like there's different, even though it's the same category, like there are probably some offenses that you think are more serious than others within that category. So I recognize that. I think that's probably the direction that this will go, and I'm not like, I think what's happened is that this standard has caused more confusion than was intended. Like it was not intended to cause confusion, but it has caused confusion. And my instinct is that the easiest way to make a similar point is to restrict these stops to instances where it is not the primary reason, like it's not the primary infraction that you're being stopped for. I think that's probably a clearer way to do this. I certainly have sympathized with sort of the idea about over-criminalization, and that was part of the intent of that standard. And I think that there's a really important conversation to have specifically on the consent search piece, because searching someone is a bigger thing than stopping them. So I think there is sort of a conversation that might need to be had about that. So something that I do feel strongly about is, at the very least on consent searches, having the carve out to make it so that marijuana odor is not enough to do a consent search. This is actually something the Independent Monitor has written in her report, saying that CPD would actually be not compliant with their Fourth Amendment policy if they continue to do this. It's also potentially going to become state law. So I hope that at least we get there, and that's actually technically right now a Class A misdemeanor, so I see your point, and that was something we carved out. So anyway, I know we are over time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. And you said, I believe you graciously offered to try and talk to folks even after this.
Yeah, I will try to talk to people after. My email is my name, aaron.gottlieb@gottliebchicago.org. I respond to email too quickly, so if you email me, I will do my best to get back to you, and we can continue to talk.
Thank you.
Dr. Gottlieb. Okay, and real quick before we move forward, in regards to people in the vehicle filming, Ms. Heyman, to your question, and this might actually clear up some vagueness to you. If it's impeding in their investigation, is where they stop. And that applies to the bystanders as well. If you're in the car, you're perfectly fine to film. But if it impedes the investigation, then they'll ask you to stop.
And
That's right. It's their perspective of it.
Yeah.
Look for the washrooms, Dr. Gottlieb?
Yes.
Right through that doorway, they flank the stairwell.
Thank you so much.
All right, before we also move on, now we had Counselor Quintero here, and we also have Counselor Ransom here. We were remiss if we didn't mention that this month marks 2 years. We're halfway through our first term here. So, happy birthday to my district counselors.
Do you want to go to the press? Or this is just an announcement really quick.
Yeah, let's go and take your announcement.
Okay, thank you. The next point on our agenda is for restorative justice. So I'm just quickly announcing that BUILD, with their main center in Austin, but they're also active in Humboldt Park. BUILD is having their 5th annual Restorative Justice Conference on May 30th. The conference is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then it's followed by a social networking hour from 4 to 6 p.m.
So that's at 5100 West Harrison Street on May 30th, pretty much all day. There is a fee to register. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Wilkoff. Our presenter just went to make a restroom call real quick. But I also wanted to thank, when he comes back out, I'd like for everybody to give a warm welcome to Dr. Ransom. As he mentioned, he's district counselor in the 11th district. He volunteered to come out and give this presentation on the district strategic plans, which there's plenty of QR codes. If you look around this place, we should make it a contest. How many QR codes can you find? But that way you can see what the current district strategic plan is, and you can also, there's another QR code where you can provide your input. This is how community public safety comes together, where we're working in concert with one another, we're having dialogue, and that we are moving forward with that. Without further ado, Dr. Ransom, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. Hey everybody, thanks for having me. I have a couple of things that I'd like to pass around. These are my own. I don't know if you guys have copies of your district strategic plans.
There's QR codes for them on the
QR
chairs. I have a small number of them to pass out though.
Oh yeah, that would be fantastic.
But so pass these around, because I didn't make one for
And then
everybody.
actually-
But your QR codes, there are QR codes that'll get you to them on your phone.
Thank you. So I'm also going to do is pass around District 15 and District 11. These are my personal copies. I actually use these to think about how we should improve them. So please take a look at these copies from other districts. You can just pass around so you can see how things change.
And if we need more pens, I've got a box full here.
All right. So hi everybody. As I said, as I introduced earlier, I'm Dr. Brian Ramson. My PhD is in physics, though. It's not in like social work. I am a district council chair for the 11th district. 11th district is one of the most active districts in the city. And one of the things that I came in to talk to you about was the district strategic plans. And the reason is because we believe that this is an avenue by which we can engage in but more exacting police accountability. We really want to have control over our police so that they can do what we need them to do. We have a lot of many issues in the 11th district that we as a community are trying to solve. And that requires not only us to be aware of those issues, but also to direct the police in the ways that we want to solve them. Police, we feel, are part of our community, and we need to work with all of our community to do so. Again, a bunch of district councils from all over the city. And the way we do that, it work. So how many people have actually seen their district strategic plan before today? Great, a few people. So the idea is that anybody who comes with these meetings or to these meetings would be very familiar with it and would have another avenue by which to put input into it. Can you go to the next slide? So let's talk about what the plans are. So these plans are written up annually, and this is by your individual district. So every district in the city has their own district strategic plan. You have one right now. There should be a QR code that you should be able to access to read it. And what it does is it focuses on two different things. Those are their crime reduction strategies. So what are the biggest crime-related issues or public safety issues in your district? And also how the police are going to properly engage with the community to address these issues. So those two things. Literally, the police write these down. You have the police build these goals with the community such that the community has proper input. So this is going to be about how that whole process happens. And then towards the end of the process, we're going to ask if you have any more work. And we'd like to get input from the community before we even start talking to the police seriously about how we think they should change the process and how district council should be involved. Make sense? Okay, next slide, please. So the purpose is to, again, to enhance public safety, to build community trust. It is a great lever of accountability because once you write something down, it becomes an official document. Everybody can read it, and then we can go to the police and we can say, hey, have you done this? And they'll either say yes or no, or maybe, or a little bit. And then depending upon how much yes and how much no, we can say, hey, well, you wrote this down, you wrote this with the community, and you're not being accountable to the community, which is a problem we have with police often. So this gives us one more way, again, to engage in that accountability. So again, they're available online. You should have access to all past 5 years, and this is important because what this does is this gives us a way to look at things over a length of time. So in addition to looking at things over multiple years, there are also ways to look at things quarterly, which we're going to talk about. And in addition to engaging with the community, the other super important thing that these district strategic plans allow is for the police to understand how they're going to allocate resources how money, people, time is going to be spent in engaging with these plans such that they get executed. So the next slide. So this was established by CPD, not CPD's policy. This came into being from the consent decree. There was a special order, which I have a copy of here, that shows you exactly how these district strategic plans are supposed to work. We can pass this around as well. That one's blue. You guys don't have any blue paper, so I know that one's mine. But the special order 02-03-02. And so what we want you guys to do is look over that special order. I don't think we're going to change that directly, but we are going to present or give to CPD updates to how we believe policy concerning that special order should be changed. So we won't change the special order, but we will give recommendations to how things moving forward should work given that special order. Go to the next slide. So let's talk about how these things get made. So there are 5 major steps. Typically, the police are supposed to engage with the community in an official capacity twice during this whole thing. So how many people have been to their community conversations that have happened in their district? So only 1, 2, 3 people? Oh, and when you don't count.
I hosted.
Oh, you hosted it. So I went to mine in District 11. I did not host mine. I have a fantastic relationship with the police in the area. I only went to 1 though. I didn't go to 2, and then I read the report after. But the way the whole thing is supposed to happen is it's supposed to start with a community conversation, much like this one, except the police are supposed to be running it, or in this case, this particular district council ran it. And then there's sort of a plan overview, which I think of as a draft plan. So that's written up, and it's formed around a few different groups, including the District Advisory Council. How many people are aware of what the District Advisory Councils are? So the people who are, whose job it is to know it is. So there is an independent group of stakeholders and community members who advise the police on how they should engage with the community. That's called the District Advisory Council. In my district, I have meetings about once every month or 2. So in addition to district council meetings, you might also want to attend your district advisory council meetings if you are invited. It's a way of also a further understanding of what's happening with the police. So once that plan is shown to a few different people, it's updated, drafts are returned, comments are given, then you have a community conversation part 2, which is you again synthesize everything that the community is saying. You take what happened in the first community conversation, and you write it again into another plan, and this is the draft final plan. And that goes out, it goes all the way up top to CPD brass. So when I say CPD brass, I mean folks downtown. So this would be like, I don't know if Snelling's on these. Do you know if Snelling's signs off on these?
I don't believe he does.
Yeah, the superintendent doesn't sign off, but I believe it's the
Community policing.
chief of community policing, I was going to say chief.
And constitutional policing.
And constitutional policing, both sign off on this. And then finally it's published. And then it's set in stone. Well, not really, it's a living document, but the idea is this is what we're gonna do, we say what we're gonna do, and this is how you should be holding the police accountable. So the critical thing about this though is that once it's made, you're supposed to check up on it. So I believe that's the next slide. Oh, no, we'll go to that in another slide. Go to the next slide and we'll talk about what every part of the DSP is.
Next slide.
Yeah, no, back.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, this guy. So again, we talked about how you're supposed to have 2 major parts. It's supposed to be problem-solving crime and community engagement. The problem-solving is supposed to use the SARA method, which is, I think, scanning, assessment. I forgot what the R stands for. The R is in, response. I had it wrong. It's scanning, analysis, response, and assessment. So you're supposed to see this method of dealing with community problems reflected in the actual crime-solving portions of the DSP. If you look at the ones that I've sent around, I know that they have done it in mine. So not only do they identify what the problem is, they identify the structural issues of the problem, both short-term, long-term, interim, etc. And then they go through how we're going to solve it, and then also talk about all the community stakeholders that are going to be involved in solving it, and also all the strategies that they're going to use in solving it. It's a fairly involved process. I was fairly impressed by how they synthesize multiple resources to generate these plans. So if I'm already impressed, then why am I out here talking to you about what's happening moving forward? We'll get to that in the next slide. In addition to, again, the first part, which is again talking about crime solving or problem solving, the community engagement piece is supposed to be broken down into particular ways as well. The police are specifically supposed to engage with at least 4 particular groups. That's youth, older adults, businesses, and victims of domestic violence. And additionally, the police can choose 2 other groups with which to have special attention in with these district strategic plans. So it would be affinity groups like LGBTQIA plus folks. It would be folks who might have disabilities, folks who are victims, folks who might otherwise be in crisis, etc. So I believe a lot of you in this meeting in particular would be very interested in trying to figure out how to force the police essentially to focus on a particular affinity group and then move forward from there. I think that addresses some of the things that you were talking about in your comment, right?
I think it's more getting impacted people to stop letting impacted people pursue regressive punishment-based carceral solutions because they've been impacted.
So, I mean, that would be something you could talk about in the DSP. You could say we want to focus on groups that are interested in implementing regressive policies because they feel that they've been affected by regressive policies. Might work.
Might lose your job, but
I mean, maybe I'm cool with that. If people don't want me to represent them, then I won't. But I would suggest you come to the 11th and chat with them about what they think. So we can move on to the next slide. So this is where I believe we have the most important part the most important way to help improve the DSPs. So the police go through all this work. They write these plans down. And then it seems to me, I don't know what happens in 14, but at least in 11, these are supposed to be living documents. They're supposed to be updated, they're supposed to be consulted. And I don't believe that they're actually being updated and or referred to after they're written.
You don't even get written copies.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I didn't get a
The first one I've seen this year.
I didn't get a written copy either. That was given to me by district council staff, but I have seen copies online. So I have seen mine, at least from my district.
Get them online. Never heard about it.
But this is, I believe, where the district councils could really come in and improve the entire situation, right? If the police aren't going to really engage with these quarterly, can you go back? Sorry. Yeah, if the police aren't really going to engage with these quarterly, then it seems like there could be a body that would really help them improve their policing by forcing them to engage with them quarterly. So that looks like not only do you guys participate in setting the plans, but then you also say, hey, how much progress have you made on this particular part of the plan? And again, if the answer is yes, no, a little bit, then you can say, well, we really want you to work on this. And you can sort of force the police, again, to focus on the things that you think affect your community. So now we can move on to the next slide. So this is where we are asking you guys to come in now. We have an opportunity to improve the process. The critical question is, moving forward, how do you guys think of the 5 steps that I showed you earlier? How do you think the process could be improved? You don't necessarily have to have answers now, but if you do, be the time.
Is that a question?
Yeah, it is.
Well, how about for every new priority that you identify, you strike another priority off the list? It only makes sense.
So I did not get into too much detail. There are typically only 3 priorities in the DSP. So you kind of have to strike one off the list.
Okay.
So I understand you guys may not have necessarily seen your DSPs before, and you're just now learning about this information. I believe there's a QR code to give feedback after the meeting.
There's a QR code to see it online, and there's another QR code where you can submit your comments.
And they don't give them out at the meetings.
I think if you ask for, I mean, you could literally say you could make that part of your strategic plan, right?
Well, yeah,
you should inform the community of the strategic plan. We expect you to print these out and deliver them to every household, right? That could be a community engagement priority, right? It's little stuff like that. So for example, some of the things I've been thinking about, right? So again, we have problems with narcotics. You can see it in our community plan for District 11. District 15 also has the same problem, and it seriously affects our quality of life. Like I have seniors who are always calling me, who are scared to come outside and empty their trash. You know, in the past 6 months, we've had former police officer. He was part of the bomb disposal squad. He retired. He was working in his garden and he got shot. He died by some folks who were moving away in front of his house. Right? So these are problems that we have in our community. And one of the things that I've been thinking is, well, what if we are able to have the folks who know where these things are happening to sort of outline what it is on the map? So maybe our district strategic plan should include a map of where they think all the issues are. And then we can go to the map and say, hey, is this still happening? And if it is, then it's a problem. And if it's not, then good job. Good. Now we can move on to another priority. Right? That's one way I can think of using district strategic plans in the 11th district. Now, of course, every district is different. Right? So we would like you to think about not only how to improve your plan, but also how to improve the process for creating a plan. So again, I guess I'll give 30 seconds of awkward air for you guys to think about it if you want it. If not, I can move on. Okay.
I'm curious. I think I would have heard you say it if it existed. Can you walk into the 11th district and find a bin with copies of the plan that you could just take and look at?
That's a good question. So I don't think I would walk into the 11th district and ask. I think I would go online and look for it. But I do take your point. They should have copies of it readily available to the public, especially if it's supposed to be involved with community engagement.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it. I envy your faith in having online be the answer to access. But some people need to.
No, I mean,
and they may not know how to use a QR code either.
I mean, my notes are physical, so I take your point.
We're handing out a beat meetings.
That could be it.
I've never seen this. I haven't missed a beat meeting in probably 20 years, and I've never seen a plan distributed at any of our beat meetings.
That's interesting.
Or information about how to find it. I get noticed, okay, we're going to have this meeting, but after that, blank.
No, I mean that's a fair point. Yeah. I don't disagree with you. We can go to the next slide. So again, we'll be meeting actually next month at our quarterly meeting. We'll be reviewing this policy. We'll be collating all of the things that you say, everything that we hear at these individual meetings, because we're doing this all over the city. We're trying to do this at every district at least once. We're getting all this feedback. We have our own opinions. We have our own policy things that we're trying to get in there. I think we're going to put together some suggestions for CPD. We're going to send it downtown. We say, this should be the police policy. So this is one of the ways that you, as an individual community member, can have a direct impact on the sorts of rules that the police have to follow. So I would really suggest that if you are interested in this, that you participate in this process. You use a QR code or you ask for ways to give more feedback. And your district council members who are for the 14th would be great ways to take that feedback as well. So, yeah. All right, I don't have anything else, I don't think. Let me make sure. I think I went through what do you think, so you can go to the next slide. So we haven't put in any preliminary ideas from this DC yet. We could if you wanted to. It doesn't sound like you guys really want to. I think I already asked you if you guys had any questions. Yeah, I think that's.
Are you at the end of the presentation?
Yeah, I think that's it.
So, if we can take a couple questions if anybody has a question.
I guess I'm wondering, like, what kinds of conversations district councils have been having about improving district strategic plans? Like, what ideas have already been generated, or like in your district, if that's a conversation you've been having?
Okay, so I'm having trouble with this question. You want conversations that are happening within the district with the police, or conversations among district councils?
District councils, yeah, about improvements. Like, what kinds of ideas are already out there? I guess.
Yeah. So I'm very honest, right? I'm a terrible politician because I just speak my mind, right? The long and short of it is, I mean, I personally think the police should be updating this every quarter and meaningfully engaging with these plans. I mean, if you're going to write it down, like, why write it down if you're not going to follow it, right? And then if you're not going to follow it, just say, hey, we couldn't get to it. Like, be honest about why you didn't get to it, right? Or maybe you just didn't want to. Maybe you didn't think it was effective policing. These are honest conversations that need to be had with the community. And having this document and basically forcing all of us to focus on a particular issue that we all agree is a problem, and then figure out how to solve it, right? I think that is probably one of the most powerful mechanisms that we have for improving this entire situation. So that's a conversation I've been having with other district council members who also feel like the police can do a better job in actually responding to this in an accountable way. Other conversations we've had. So if you look at the back of the district the DSPs I have, there's signatures on them, right? Yeah. So that's how the folks the CPD brass have decided that they're going to say we look at it and you sign off on it. I think it would be a good idea if district council members had signatory authority on this, right? To make sure that the community is properly represented, or that you're actually consulting with community members outside of interactions with police. Because not everybody's comfortable coming to a meeting with police, right? You might get folks who have criticisms that want to be included in the DSP that they want there, and again, the district councils will be a way of putting that in there. So maybe one of your priorities community-wise is maybe the police stop being assholes to folks, right? Like, that's a thing that people complain about a lot at our meetings. So, yeah.
Or making sure there's a DAC committee person.
Making sure there's a DAC committee person.
On that.
Like, basically, if it involves policing, you can put it in your community portion, right? So it's a Swiss Army knife. And then as long as you show up to the meetings, whether they be the individual DSP meetings, maybe their district councils could have quarterly meetings just for the DSPs. This would be a way of saying, we really want you guys to deal with this. It is in your DSP. Why aren't you dealing with it? And then also because it's now like a technical state record, right? Like they can't just put it away and ignore it. And if the community has more input in that, then you have record of the police not listening to the community. You can do a lot with
that. I don't know if I'm out of place quite in what you're going through, but I'm thinking about this. How do you get the district plan distributed? Mm-hmm. And what are some ideas for that you could recommend the adoption of? Mm-hmm. And I happen to be a fan of the Chicago Public Schools local school councils as a distribution mechanism for information about things that affect the schools, but are not Board of Education products. Mm-hmm. And so you could, it would seem to me, however you wish to say it, that each district must have a representative request an opportunity to present the district plan to each of the local school councils. And since we have on the local school councils locally elected individuals who are not Board of Education employees, those people might be the ones that somehow you could work into that. You got to work through them. They're the community representatives on the local school council.
So that sounds like to me is saying that there needs to be a public presentation of the district strategic plan to community stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly so. Somehow, and here's a concrete example of it. You're not doing it in the police district office. Mm-hmm. You're
right. And if I could jump in here, I'm sorry. Only issue that I foresee with that is that school board districts vary greatly from police districts. That's part of the issue. What I'll do one better, and I'll volunteer this. How about we disseminate them at public libraries? Because DC 14 loves libraries. Am I right?
Yes, and it's simply a question of where you have the power. There's no question we have the power to get the documents into the public library. Right. Absolutely no question. And here in Logan Square, probably there would be people, because there is a Friends of the Public Library, they would see to it that they were visible and so on, and might even give you an opportunity to come talk about it. But don't discount the school councils.
Right, and I don't.
As another.
Right, and I think that we can all work together. But I think primarily, like I said, I think, so people don't have to go to the police headquarters office to get the information that they're looking for because of whatever reason. They have it available at the library, that they can take a copy home with them. Do whatever they want, or they can use a computer there and do all the research they want, or whatever the case may be.
And I just also, from the days of officer friendly, I believe that there is value in having a uniformed member of the Chicago Police Department walk into a public school and do something in front of people that is not threatening or responding to a...
More informational rather than...
Exactly so. The policeman could be your friend.
I mean, I could see that being implemented in the youth portion of the community engagement, right? That this needs to be disseminated through public schools and on library. Like, that seems reasonable to me. But, right, you can basically do whatever you want. It seems like I'm running out of time.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you once again for coming to get
Oh, I had DSPs that have my name. Thank you. And then there's a blue sheet. Yeah, I did. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, because I know everybody wants to get out of here. Under this weather, Councilor Woodcock, you have something about the self-defense initiative.
Yeah, so thank you. So I already, gave my update of that we had this first workshop. There's a second one already in the works for June 2nd in this exact location, I believe. There's a group that does self-defense class here every other Monday evening at 7 p.m. and the council is going to just sponsor one of those, so it's free. There are currently 96 people that signed up saying they were interested in taking a free self-defense class offered from the district. So I would like to look ahead into planning additional trainings. I think it was a good use of $600 of our funding to have the training on May 10th, and I think that we could plan to have another one maybe in July or something like that. So that could be a question for my co-counselors or for people. That's the main thing. The other thing is I have these alarms if you want to look at them.
If you want, yeah, that's part of the self-defense, right?
Does anybody feel strongly one way or the other that we should or should not continue to use some of your tax dollars to pay for self-defense classes?
Personal alarms and or self-defense courses. And I'll share with you that, not that I have any concern, it's not my money, it's your money. So I'm making certain that I'm being a good steward of your money, first and foremost. So I'm all about protecting people. I want public safety from end to end. I want to make certain that we're spending it wisely though, so I want to hear some feedback, some assessment on some of the participants. I don't want to put them on the spot and have them come out here and give a declaration or a Yelp review, whatever the case may be. But I just want to make certain that it's yielding the results that we're investing in. Because like I said, it's your money. I want to make certain that your money is being put to good use.
I'm not sure if anybody that participated is in the room today. I did not do an exit survey. That might have been a good thing. There were some, I wasn't present for the actual workshop. I was there before and after, but they don't want a lot of people just like observing or whatever. But I did overhear the people leaving, and they generally seem to be in high spirits with positive outlook that they were describing to each other. But I'm sorry I don't have more formal information about that.
You have any thoughts?
I do want to hear people's perspective on like using funding for
Personal alarms?
For alarms. The only thoughts I have was I saw an email about getting like the 14th district logo. I don't know like if we should follow through with that or not. I would prefer not to. If people want the want the alarms, we can just give them an alarm without the logo. I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but my thoughts. Depending like how much extra that is, like how many hundreds that would cost with the logo or without the logo. If I'm explaining myself.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Unless the logo had some critical or important information that the user of the alarm would benefit from having. That they wouldn't otherwise have conveniently if they didn't have the silly things.
Yeah.
One issue is that we won't be able to go for the cheapest retail option with the city funding anyway. We will have to go with the city vendor. So I do think that there may be cheaper options potentially without the logo. However, they are still going to be much higher than anyone would expect to pay.
Welcome to government spending. But no, and that also brings up the other item because it's kind of a mystery cloud right now as far as where we stand with our annual budget. I don't have that exact number. I think before we start to obligate ourselves to future expense that we get an idea of a metric of where we are with that before we obligate ourselves to further more.
Oh.
And let us know what it is.
Right.
Well,
It used to be like 5K.
Yeah, roughly we have about 5. So if we do not want to pay for additional self-defense trainings, I am very curious, because we're about halfway through the year, what we would want to use the money for alternatively. Because my understanding is we have roughly 5,000 available. So far, all we've spent is $600 for this event, and we did have an approval to spend about $600 for finding some alarms, but we have not pulled the trigger on that yet. So we're way under 2,500 for half of the year. So I'm all ears if counselors or other people have other things they want to spend money on.
I just want to know where we are before we start getting too far down the road.
5K and 600.
Well, I mean,
I would second more self-defense classes. I like that idea, considering it's something community has asked for, and it was well attended. I would second that, and then we can just continue conversation about other community events to fund, or
Great.
we can continue that.
I don't need to take a lot more time if any other counselors want to say anything else. For the alarms, I would ask that maybe if we want to, I will curry them around or whatever. We could have time to look at them and decide if we have a preference on them. Some of the differences are like, I don't know. This one, like you wear them in different ways or you pull the pin in different ways. I'm not sure.
These would be the end users.
Yeah, so people want to take a look at them. I mean, there's different styles. Some of them come with the keychains attached and some do not. This one you can wear around your neck, but so for the ones that you have to be careful because this is the safety pin. So you could put this on your keychain, but you don't want to pull it off, or it's literally a freight train. They're supposed to be 130 decibels. So yeah, we can just put these up. If people want to take a look or if they have any opinions, let us know. But I'm about done. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a question. We don't have a clue right now what we're paying for the alarms, and we don't know what we're paying for the classes.
No, we paid $600 to Thousand Waves Self-Defense and Martial Arts Studio. They brought like at least 10 people out to do this event. It was a 3-hour workshop. So we paid $600 for that. The space was given to us free from the director of Pulaski Park Fieldhouse. The alarms, we have not paid anyone yet. We talked though about spending $600 to get 100 alarms.
They cost between $4 and $6 depending on whatever the counselors end up deciding.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Whatever the final cost is, I would recommend it to be a pass-through. Nobody should be making money on the sale of alarms.
Right, well, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we have to go through an approved city contractor, vendor, and what have you.
Yeah, we have no relation to
these vendors. Board of Ethics holds us to pretty high standards when it comes to things like that. Like, I don't get to pocket any of this money. That's why I'm so adamant that you are.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to call those.
Yeah. We never touch the money. The money is in the city's. Yeah.
It never touches my wallet. All right. Only other thing that I'd like to bring up is I'd like for us to consider repealing the the amendment to the bylaws that was made regarding keeping of minutes. I think that's more our responsibility, and we can bring it up into a formal write-up and vote for next month. But I think that the way things are going, it's unduly burdensome on our staff, and we're now delaying 3 sets of minutes for next month, which is going to put even more responsibility on us in the future. I think that it's something worth talking about and revisiting.
For any bylaw changes, for any votes, I'd be happy to read and review that ahead of the meeting. But I think that it would make sense, possibly at least maybe to suspend that with the current short staff that we have. Potentially, if that is a situation that we maybe want when there's full staffing, could be different. But I agree that we're in a short staff situation right now.
And by the way, I want to go ahead and acknowledge.
What we need is a COC. I don't second I don't second removing the duty of the minutes being kept by CCPSA staff. Just to be fair and to be equitable in all comments. To be included in our minutes. So I would like to keep it for staff, but I do request a community outreach person instead of Anna, because she's our project manager and she's working multiple roles.
And that brings me to another item. I do want to acknowledge Anna, who's basically she goes above and beyond. She takes very, very good care of us. And for everything she does to us, it's important to remember we're not the only district that she concerns herself with. It's true. So, hats off to you, Anna. That we brought up the staffing issue. There are some positions available in the CCPSA staff, one of which is open currently right now on the Chicago Jobs website for a project manager, not premier project manager like Anna, but to a different degree. It's project management, but you're not expected to do everything that Anna does because Anna's just awesome. But and then there's also a community outreach coordinator that's supposed to be coming up. There's also a community outreach coordinator position that's supposed to be opening up as well. So who knows? You might wind up.
Next meeting is supposed to be
at Wicker Park. Before we go,
when you're
I took a look this morning. Wicker Park.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong date. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So, okay, before we go ahead and adjourn, I'd like to make note, our next meeting, Wicker Park, Bucktown Library, 1701 North Milwaukee Avenue, and that is going to be at 1 p.m. on Saturday, June 14, 2025. We moved it, when we approved the meeting calendar in December, we knew that we had quarterly meetings scheduled that would conflict with our normal meeting, which is usually the first Saturday. So this was baked in to that calendar when we approved it in December. So I know it's a little weird, plus being the fact that we're here 2 weeks later than what we normally do makes it even a little bit more strange. But so basically it'll be 4 weeks from today at the Wicker Park Library.
Right. Are we happy with this location?
No.
I've received negative feedback on this location thus far.
It is not accessible, yeah.
So there is actually a small accessible
And where does it go?
That's a good question.
Upstairs, and I still have to walk up and downstairs.
Really?
Yes, pretty
okay.
sure.
I apologize. Thank you all so much for your
And I
patience.
couldn't get in that door anyway.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
All right, so.
I would motion to adjourn it.
Can I get a second? Second. All right, current time now is 5:41. We are now adjourned.
Thank you. And thank you, Aaron, for staying as well. So if anybody would like to speak again with one of your commissioners, he's still here.